Hey there everybody, Scott here today. Hope you guys are doing great. Alright, so I've made this video now. This will be the third time I've tried to make this video. So let's hope I can get it right this time. And I'm going to try to make it not too long because I don't want to bore you guys. And I've sort of talked about this in a past video, but this is something that has been on my mind a lot here recently. And it keeps nagging in the back of my mind, so that means I need to talk about it. Now, I guess I seem to be on kind of a survival theme this week, so that's part of what this video is about. And one of the things that I want you guys to think about is how reliant you are on computers and electronic devices. Because let's face it, I think in this day and age, most of us probably are somewhat dependent upon these types of devices. I know for myself, I run my businesses on the internet. So the computer is something that I use on a daily basis. I also use the internet and my computer for just social outlets. I run the discussion groups on the internet, and I'm busy with those on a daily basis. I do YouTube, obviously. So, there are a lot of things in my life that revolve around using the computer and electronic devices on a day-to-day basis. Now, what happens if all of a sudden we do not have access to these types of devices? Something you need to ask yourself is, could you survive without those things? And I think that a lot of people in this day probably would have a very hard time just managing from day to day without these devices, because we have become so reliant on them. But in the event of some type of catastrophic event, even just a weather event, that can knock out your ability to have access to the internet, computers, cell phones, GPS, things like that. So if you don't have these devices and you rely on them for your information and you have no other means to get that information, then you're going to be in a pickle. And that's why I am a big advocate of having hard copy information. And for those of you that don't understand what I mean, is printed material that I already have on hand, secured, so that if something happens, let's say the satellite systems go berserk. Let's say we find ourselves in some kind of martial law or even a war situation, and all it would take is one EMP to basically knock out all electronics in your area, therefore rendering you without the ability to just hop on the computer and Google anything that you need for survival situations. So what you guys need to think about is starting to build a library, books, if you guys remember what actual paper books are. And I don't mean that to be ugly, but let's face it, especially younger people, they have e-books, all these e-readers and all that kind of stuff these days. And, people, I think people don't respect paper books like they used to, because we have it all at the ends of our fingers just by typing it on a computer. You need to start building a library of self-help type books, survival books, how-to books. I love those kinds of books, and when I find them, I always try to make sure, if I don't have it, if it's something that looks interesting to me, I always try to purchase it. And just as a side tip to that, you know, you can go on the computer and go to Amazon and eBay and places like that. But look in thrift stores and old used bookstores. I've been to a few up here and have found some great how-to type books for dirt cheap. So that's kind of it's a cheaper way to build you a better library. Another thing you guys might want to think about is just printing information out from the computer. There's you guys know there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of websites with useful information. Well, it's great if you look at them, but if you're not retaining that knowledge, and if you're like me, those folks who are in the middle age to getting older sect, then it's harder for me to retain information. Let's face it, I forget things all the time these days. So I have to print stuff out, so that way I have hard copy stuff on hand, so that if I need to go back and reference it, then I'll have it. And it's just a really good idea for you guys to think about, because there very well may come a time when all of us may have to learn how to get by on a day-to-day basis without the use of all these electronic devices that we have grown so accustomed to. And if you don't have all of this information already on hand, then it's going to be much harder for you to just do the basic necessities, and you don't think about it. You really don't. Even I don't think about it. Just doing basic day-to-day type things. If we found ourselves in a situation to where we had to go back and basically do everything from scratch, there's a lot of stuff that we just don't think about, and things that we take for granted because we have all of these modern tools and modern ways of doing things, and you know, faster or easier. Well, in a situation where you guys are back to, you know, what people joke about and say back to the Stone Age or the Dark Ages, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you would have to do by hand, manually. And if you don't have the information on how to do those things, then you're going to have a really, really hard time surviving. So, you know, I guess basically the message that I'm trying to give today is, you know, the computer can be a great, great asset and a wonderful tool for what it is. But there may come a day when that tool goes away. And if you aren't armed with the knowledge and the skills, or don't have the readily resources to look stuff up on how to fix things, how to build things, how to prepare things, how to mend things, you know, how to save someone's life, etc., then you know, you may not make it. So start building you a library. Remember that the computer, for what it is right now, is great, but in these types of situations, the computer may not be there to save your life. So you need to have materials on hand now, put away, so in the event that you lose your ability to use these modern devices, you will still be able to take care of yourself, your friends, and your family. Hope that helps you guys. You take care. We'll talk to you later. God bless. Bye-bye for now.